Hello, I hope you're good, and firstly I want to apologise, it's been a little while since I posted. I thought it had been a few months, but I look back, it's actually been 9 months since I posted. And there are some big reasons for that. I've been struggling a little bit with physical and mental health, and to be honest, that's a little bit too much for me to get into at the moment, so you never know, maybe in a future video. But it does lead nicely onto what I want to talk about today, which is burnout. Now, for me, burnout is one of those things, it's almost like a catch-all phrase. It's like when you ask someone how they are and they say, oh, I'm really busy. It just kind of means nothing. It's almost like a bit of a badge of honour to say, yeah, look how much I'm doing. But burnout to creative people is something a little bit different, and it can be quite detrimental, certainly to your mental health. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it today, because I think personally I've ignored a few warning signs in the past and I probably should have taken it a bit more seriously. But those first few warning signs that you get with burnout can actually, really stop you from going down a bad path and causing yourself more trouble than you need. So what is burnout? Now, it can manifest itself very differently for basically everyone. There's no like hard and fast rule to say if you get this, this is what you've got. So there are a few things though that I think jump out to mind, and one of those is basically losing passion for what you do. So I'm a photographer by trade, I absolutely love photography, it's all I want to do, but on more than one occasion during my career I've got to a point where I don't even want to pick a camera up, I don't even want to go out and take pictures for myself, let alone do client work. And that's quite a scary thought. And losing that passion and stuff not only affects your business if you're self-employed, but if you're an amateur or if you're just passionate about going and taking photos, that time when you wake up and you don't want to go and take pictures is a little bit worrying. So we're going to take a look at a few things that can kind of help highlight those problems, and also we'll look at some ways to get around it as well. So let's jump into it. So it's probably best if we start to highlight a few things that are like warning signs for burnout, especially with creatives. Although I've got to say this can affect any kind of career, and in particular those that deal with high pressure situations on a daily basis. But for creatives in particular, some of the big warning signs, like I say, are a loss of passion for what you do, but also feeling tired all the time and feeling generally run down. But more importantly, from a mental health point of view, it's that loss of control. It's that I don't know what I'm doing, I've got too much work to do and no time to do it all. And this feeling that you're letting yourself down and you're going to be letting other clients down and friends and family down and stuff. And that's a real problem. What many people don't realise is these are actually like the early warning signs of depression and can be, can lead to much bigger problems. So they really need to be taken seriously. So a few things that happened in my own kind of personal career was I got to a point where I didn't even want to go out and take photos, and that is a worry to me. But also started turning away a lot of client work, and probably the worst of the lot for me personally was I started letting clients down, I started missing deadlines, I was producing work that wasn't particularly high standard or anything like that, and that's something that doesn't sit comfortably with me. So it got to a point where I kind of had to sit myself down and try and evaluate what was going on and work out what the problem was. And that's quite a difficult thing to do. So acknowledging these early warning signs is really important. However, it's not just from a professional point of view, it's not just if you actually work or make a living from photography, videography, or whatever creative field you're in. Even if you're just an amateur who does it for the love of what you do, there are still some warning signs to look out for with that as well, because it does affect your creativity and it can cause problems. And some of those kind of warning signs that I look out for with that are feelings of anxiety. So lots of people get to a point where they're scared to post online because they're worried about what people might say in the comments, or it might not get as many likes as you thought. And I think that is a bigger picture thing as well, where social media and stuff is such a haven for negativity and can breed some really bad habits. I was speaking to a friend recently and we were chatting about the fact that would you rather have £10,000 worth of client work or 1 million followers on Instagram? Now there's arguments for both, but personally I'd rather just take the client work and get on with it. And I think too many people put their focus on, I need a lot of followers on social media to be classed as successful. And that isn't going to happen. You know, there's not all that many people that have million+ subscribers that are doing fantastic work. It helps if you're pretty, it helps if you roll around on beaches in bikinis and things, but I don't think anyone's going to want to see me in a beach in a bikini. So there can be a lot of pressure from social media, but also there can be a lot of peer pressure as well. There can be a lot of worrying about what others in your field think of your work, and I've certainly fallen victim to that. I look at what other people are doing. There's some amazing photographers in the area that I live, and it kind of, you know, really builds on my anxiety and makes me worry about what I'm posting and how it's going to be received. And to be honest, that's just something that you don't need in your life. Worrying about what others think is just an absolute waste of time, but more on that later. But it's not just about looking at the creative side of things with burnout, where you go, oh, I don't want to go and take pictures. Burnout can manifest itself in lots of other physical ways as well. And I'm living proof of being overweight and going bald and things, that stress can cause some real bad problems for your physical health. So again, acknowledging that you are feeling burnout, that you've got anxiety issues, that you're worried about your career or your hobby, it can lead to much more serious things. So again, that's something that you need to be wary of. Things like poor appetite and definitely poor sleeping patterns. Like, I really struggle with sleeping and have to take tablets to help me sleep. But I also have to make sure that I can wake up the next morning and go out and do a good job. So when you have all of this stress, anxiety and worry added on top, and you are struggling with sleeping, diet and actually just staying generally physically fit, these things can be really detrimental to you. So acknowledging that and admitting that you do have an issue and you need to sort something out can be a real big step in the right direction. So there's probably quite a few things that we've spoken about there that will ring true with a number of you, that you do worry about what other people think online, that you have lost a bit of passion for what you do. So you can start to acknowledge that there might be those warning signs there that you are feeling a little bit burnt out and that you might not be in as good a place as you should be. So now that we've acknowledged what burnout is and looked at the warning signs, what can you actually do to resolve it? What can you actually do to try and make a bit of amends? And one of the first things I would recommend is just completely stop. Take a little bit of time to yourself and just acknowledge and go, right, I need to sort myself out and I need to take some time to do that. And just by stopping and acknowledging it, that's actually a huge step in the right direction to actually fix this problem. And depending on whether you do it as a career or whether you do it as a hobby, one of the other first things that you really want to look at is just do a basic audit of everything that you've got going on. So a lot of the times there'll be other pressures, there'll be family, there'll be money issues and these kind of things, and we've all been there and we all have those kind of issues. But just stopping and going, I've got too much on my plate at the moment, that is a huge step in the right direction. But also, doing a bit of an audit of all the work that you've got outstanding, certainly if it's a career and you're doing this professionally, actually really helps you just get on top and go, right, so I've got X amount of jobs that need to be done by this time. How am I going to do that and how am I going to allot my time? And that really takes some pressure off when you can just lay all of your cards on the table and say, right, now I know what I've got to do, how can I do that? So some of this might seem like slightly obvious advice, but one of the biggest issues with burnout is when you feel like you have more work to do than you have time to actually do it. But once you start to take on a few simple scheduling tools and things like that, you can actually start to really make a difference and look at how you're going to achieve those things. So one of the things that I tend to do is I use my inbox as a bit of a reminder list. So if there's important emails that need to be responded to, I'll make sure they're set to high priority. But also I do a good job of keeping up to date with a calendar. I use several different calendar apps spread across different Mac and PC machines, but there's always a way of keeping on top of what I've got coming up and what I need to do. I also like to set priorities on those items because some of them are personal things that I need to get finished, whereas some have hard and fast deadlines. But actually just keeping on top of your workload and using simple tools to help you do that is, again, a massive way of getting yourself out of that burnout position. One one of the next big steps in terms of actually managing workload is being honest with yourself. Do you look at it and say, I've got too much work and I cannot finish this? And sometimes you might need to go back to a few clients and say, I need an extension, or I'm not going to be able to get that finished on time. That does happen, and not everyone's going to be happy with doing that. I certainly don't like doing that, but sometimes you have to give yourself half a chance. The other thing is, and one of the biggest tips I can give you, is learning to say no. Just because, you know, a client comes to you and they're saying they've got X amount of budget doesn't necessarily mean that you should take the work on. Sometimes you have to take a look and go, I've got enough as it is, I don't need to take any more work, or I just don't have the capacity to do that at the moment. So learning to say no is a big thing. Always be polite, always be professional. But actually just turning around and saying, I can't fit that in at the moment, is there any chance that we can come back in a couple of months and have another look at it? You'd be surprised at how many times people are prepared to be flexible if you have the skills that they want to utilise. Building on from the scheduling side of things and a few of the obvious kind of tips on managing your own time, it's also good to audit the bigger portion of your life. So looking at your personal situation, your living situation, your financial situation. A lot of the time you can be really focused on the one area. So if you're a photographer and you actually make a living from your photography, you might think that that's the highest priority. But don't forget, you can easily neglect friends, family, your living situation, your financial situation. And no matter how good you are a photographer, sometimes you have to take a step back and say, I need to spend a bit of time with family and actually just step away from photography altogether. And that leads me quite nicely onto the next big tip, which is do something completely different to whatever it is that you do. So if you're a graphic designer and you spend all of your time drawing beautiful images, take a bit of time to go and do something completely different. Maybe go for a walk, go rock climbing, whatever it is. Get out into nature, go and experience a bit of the real world, and get out of the office, get away from the desk for a little while. Not only is it important just to do that to clear your own mind and concentrate on something completely different, so you're not so focused in the same area, but also again for your physical health and things, don't be locked up in a room all day long, don't stare at a computer all day long. We all carry phones, tablets, computers, we're all staring at screens practically every hour of our waking life. It's important to break away from that and actually go out and enjoy nature. Now again, I'm pointing out that physical health can be really important to not feeling burnt out. And I'm probably not the best role model for this, but lots of people join gyms, lots of people take up running or cycling or swimming and use that as a way of basically alleviating a bit of stress and physically wearing yourself down a little bit so that your body can relax and recoup and rest properly. And one of those things that I actually quite like to do is I've got several different kind of hobbies that are not related to photography in the slightest. And that acts as not only just a mental distraction, but many of those are physically demanding, and that really helps just take your mind off what you're doing and help you get some rest. Now in terms of burnout feeling more like a mental block, like you don't know what to do next or you just don't feel creative, one of the other big tips is to not only find inspiration, but look through Instagram, look through Facebook or YouTube and find things that inspire you and make you want to go out and create better work, but also consider taking on a mentor as well. So again, if you're a photographer, look at somebody in the local area's work that you admire and maybe reach out to them and see if you can, go for a walk with them, go and take some images. Try and take on someone that's going to help inspire you to take your work to the next level. One of the big things with burnout is that when you don't feel like you're going to progress and you feel like you're stuck in a bit of a rut, you really need to do something that can help you improve and get your passion back. That can be learning new techniques, going and trying something different, or just shooting something that you would never normally consider shooting. But having a mentor, having someone there to help walk you through those steps is kind of really important in making sure that you stay on track. Being beholden to somebody else and having to agree to certain times to go and meet them and stuff, really inspires you to actually stick to it and go and do it, rather than just saying, "Oh, I feel a bit burnt out, I'm not going to go out today." So having somebody else there to guide you is a really, really important thing. And probably my final kind of tip or suggestion around burnout is just to acknowledge that it's gonna happen. And it doesn't matter whether you've never experienced it or you've had it several times. The likelihood is over the course of your career or even life, you're gonna have moments when you just don't feel inspired, you feel naturally worn down, and you have no passion for what you're doing. Don't beat yourself up over that. There's no point in kind of making yourself feel worse. That is when it can lead to bigger things and can lead to more serious elements of depression. So just acknowledging that, yeah, you're not in the greatest of place, but it will go, it will change. And all of a sudden you'll come across something that inspires you to get out and create better work and go and fulfill your passion again. So don't let burnout or any kind of depression knock you completely off track. Acknowledge that it's something that happens and that you need to deal with it, and certainly don't hide from it either. Don't try and pass it off as though it's not happening to me, but maybe use some of the tips that we've spoken about to kind of get you through that. So I hope this video's helped in some kind of way. Now, to be honest, I'm not an expert in terms of giving advice, and certainly not talking around mental health. I've got my own problems to deal with. But I do worry about other people, and I do think that things like social media put too much pressure on people to have to perform, and it's not always like that. You're not always going to be able to go out there and absolutely nail it and get the shot that you need. So people need to understand that as well, but also not to put too much pressure on yourself. Life's too short as it is. By worrying about things that probably won't happen, you're not going to be doing yourself any favours anyway. So make sure that you're there to produce your best work, stay on top of things, schedule well, and obviously when you start to feel a little bit lower, just take a bit of time to yourself and concentrate on yourself for a while. So I hope this video has helped. If it has, I'd love to see the comments below. Share some tips that you might have come across yourselves, or if you're prepared to talk about your own personal issues and your own experiences with burnout, that would be great, because we are a community, we're all here to support each other. So it'd be great to see people helping each other out in the comments below. And as always, if this video's helped, do hit subscribe. And if there's other things that you'd like me to talk about, I'm more than happy to do that, and I'll share those in future videos. So take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon.